Hello, third grade teachers. We wanted to take a few minutes to walk you through the materials that you received in regard to the revised informational writing unit for this year. So you should have received a copy of the unit, and you'll notice there have been some changes on the front cover here tied directly to your informational writing standards. One of them being that students really need to know how to group facts and details using linking words, and this is a new term. In the past, we've used temporal words. So linking words is very similar to transition words and phrases. And we need to teach students that these words are kind of changeable. So they're using these to connect pieces of information with a partner and independently. And that comes directly from the standards. We also want to make sure that students are paying attention to facts and details and definitions within a section of informational text, and that they can apply that to their writing. And then how and when to use illustrations. And this illustrations is a broad term that includes text features. Text features either to A, locate information such as a table of contents or an index, or B, to help readers comprehend the piece of informational text, like a graph or a picture or a diagram or something like that. So one of the other new pieces in this unit can be found, if you'll flip with me to page 8. So what we did is we took the reading standards, the reading informational standards, and we tied them to the informational standards. And this is really important because what we're teaching using the read alouds, standards-based read alouds, really connect to students' ability to understand these components in text. And then what we need them to do is apply that information when writing. So we've highlighted some important pieces here. And we want students to really understand how to group information and categorize it, and then to write a piece of informational text using an introduction and a concluding statement or section. So that is on page 8. And we want to take a look at the table of contents. So this has really changed where we're kind of front-loading students with some information and teaching as a group, like I do and we do, for the first 4 lessons, really to teach kids how this really looks and keep our hands real close to them in this regard. And then students will get an opportunity to work through the writing process using what they learned in the first 4 lessons, doing research around one of the 3 types of sea turtles, or most common. So loggerhead, leatherback, and green sea turtle. And we provided you with a lot of resources to do that. And we'll take a look at that at the conclusion of going through this unit. One thing we want you to pay attention to is the word essay that's used in a lot of PARC assessment prompts really just comes from the French word meaning a piece of intellectual writing to be published. And I apologize for the typo there. But basically, it's just what you're writing, your thoughts on paper. So teach kids again, this is semantics, but essay means to write your thoughts down. So that's important. So let's take a look at the first lesson. And prior to that, just to know, this is a resource for you and students should you choose, but this is a list of a variety types of text features and how to use them. That's there for you. Here's a more simplified piece. So what the text feature is and how it helps the reader or what it does for the reader. So that might be something you want to look at. And then we've listed a variety of mentor texts that have been purchased by Calvert County to support this, this project, this research. Note that our school librarians use the Super 3 research approach. And so when you start this, working on this, please tell them what you're doing and ask them for their support in this process. This is a glimpse down here as to what the unit kind of looks like. So take a look at those bullets as well. So the first lesson is on page 12, and this is understanding facts, details, and definitions. And what we're looking for students to do in this lesson is to read an excerpt from 2 different sea turtle articles, or you choose which article you want. It's the same, let me rephrase. It's the same article that we provided for you, and it's 2 different Lexile levels. So this was printed for you in color, and it is on Schoology. The article is here. You want to look at pages 19 to 26. And what this looks like, when you open that document, when you go to page 19, you will see 2 articles, same title, but 2 different Lexile levels. So if you need to differentiate for your kids, you can go ahead and use one or the other article. So just pay attention to that. And we did send every teacher 5 copies of that text. But we retyped a section here for you, and we're looking for students to do is to identify facts and details in a section of that article. So that's what we're asking students to be able to do before we get started, because writing informational text has everything to do with identifying facts and then supporting those facts with details. The other section of the article that we want you to pay attention to is to point out to students domain-specific vocabulary. And in the article, there is the word poachers that has an inset into the articles defining what it is. It's a definition box. And so we want kids to pay attention to those types of text features. And when they write their piece, maybe that is something they want to include in their piece for their readers. So you're going to work through this with the students in an I do, we do format. The next lesson, starting on page 16, is about gathering information. And again, this will be done as a class. And the teacher can either use the articles from the first lesson, the colored copies from the Sea Turtles, or remember you can download them from Schoology, or you can ask the science teacher for information about the Maryland Terrapin, any resources in science. And we're going to use a new type of graphic organizer called an expository writing circle map. So what this is at the top part of the map, we're basically going to ask students to do a brain dump. So in the center here, it would either say terrapins or sea turtles. And we're just going to list things that we know. So we have the students turn and talk, we dump things in here, and then we're going to confirm whether they're correct or not as we do a little bit more research. Maybe read the rest of the sea turtle article, maybe look at something online. And the things that we can find as being correct, we put a check. Things that we can't find, we maybe put a question. Or if we definitely find out that this is wrong information, we put an X. And so this is just a way to kind of collect and gather information. That's all this chart is asking students to do, is gather information. The next lesson works towards sorting these facts and details that they brain dumped onto this circle map the day before. So you can see 2 pictures here. Basically, either A, you can take a picture of the circle map and have kids cut it apart, print it out and cut it apart, cut apart the actual circle map that you made with the kids, and have kids sort those facts and details into 3 categories, because we're working on sea turtles, or terrapins. So we're going to look at attributes, actions, and environments. And what this does is it kind of takes the K-2 graphic organizer that they use in kindergarten to 2nd grade, can have, and do, I think that's the 3 categories, or can have are categories, and bumps it up a notch to attributes, actions, and environments. And what the students will do is take the facts that they collected the day before as a class, and in small groups, they can go ahead and sort these into the 3 categories. Or, like I said, you could just cut apart your anchor chart and sort it together as a class. Either way, so there's some pictures there for you to see. And basically what we're having kids do is to group information. The next lesson goes into drafting and publishing. And here's where we want teachers to take one of the 3 columns, attributes maybe, and model what the paragraph might look like when you're writing about these facts and details, using transition words, indenting, all of the things that you would want students to do. Then in small groups, having them work on the next column, and then maybe independently on another day working on the last column. And so this whole thing might take about 3 to 5 days to complete, and it brings them through the entire process. Here, starting on page 25, because students might be working in Microsoft Word, Sheila Gearhart created this document. It's embedded in the unit. There are some videos here, Welcome to Word, teaching about the features of Microsoft Word. But this is a really great tool for students to look at text, how to use text features, how to use font in their piece. So this is just here for you to share with the students. So at this point, we're going to stop and notice that the teachers are going to choose a publishing option or options. It's up to you how you want that to look, but there are some choices there. And we're going to move into teaching kids how to introduce a topic, how to write a conclusion by collecting information and grouping it. Okay, so this is just a picture of what those anchor charts might look like. So at this point, you're going to choose, and you can go the social studies route if you want, but remember, you're going to have to change the headings for the 3-column chart. So if you stick with sea turtles, we have sent you a lot of articles on sea turtles to your buildings. This is another one, the NOAA. You've gotten 3 articles to your buildings, loggerhead, green sea turtles, and leatherback sea turtles. Some of the articles we couldn't put into Schoology because we did not have digital formats for them. So you're going to bring kids through choosing and selecting and dividing your class into 3 groups around the 3 types of sea turtles, or choose a social studies topic. And we're going to go through the same process that we just went through as a class, sorting and gathering information. And then we will work on grouping that information, teaching them how to write an introduction. So you'll teach them how to write an introduction after they group their information and start writing their paragraphs. The next lesson on page 38 uses linking words to group that, and it will depend. Probably most 3rd graders will write description paragraphs. They may do some sequencing or compare contrast, but your linking words will really depend on the type of text structure that they're writing. So model that for students as you go through writing your piece for students. So you'll have to choose a sea turtle or some topic to model all this through. Then we go into writing a concluding statement or section. So remember, in narrative, we call these things leads, we call them endings. In informational writing, we call it introduction, and we call it concluding statement or section. So we give them some examples from text, we give them some sentence starters to help them with this process because it is difficult for students, and with 3rd graders, we want to guide them as much as possible through this. We end with editing, and we end with publishing. Oops, we lost the pages, I'm sorry. Close your eyes for a moment so I can go to the bottom here. We have editing, we have publishing, just like in the past, so those lessons have not changed. And we have several checklists. And finally, at the very end, we do have some tools for suggestion for scoring. You can assign points to these different categories for your students. Remember to use the standards when developing your checklists. You could assign, you get 2 points if you were able to introduce the topic. If you did it really well, if you were kind of on track, you could get a point, and no points if you didn't introduce your topic. So think about using the standards on the left and then assigning a point value over here as to what the students can get, allowing them to revise and edit in groups and pairs and then with you. And then finally, we have, and this is a pretty important page, but on page 56 of this document, we have images for all the different articles and books that might be available in your buildings. These books here have been purchased by CCPS. If your school held on to the HM leveled reader books, you will have these in your building. And then we sent you copies of all of these articles, and several of them are already on Schoology. Also, materials are available with your school librarian on the school librarian databases. If you need anything from us at the Board of Ed, please do not hesitate to ask. Good luck with the unit, and please give us feedback if you have any. Thanks.